Eventually, Hijikata and Shimada returned. He gathered all of the remaining warriors, including Soma and Nomura.
局長を置いて我々だけ逃げるって本当ですか、副長?
God, give me a second!
局長命令だ。お前らは俺と一緒にここから脱出してもらう。
ですが、このまま投降したらすぐ正体を見破られるに決まってます。せめて俺だけでも局長のおそばに。
局長命令だっつうのが聞こえねえのか。てめえ、近藤さんの気遣いを無駄にするつもりか。
Someone looked like he wanted to respond, but instead he looked down as he tightened his fists and shook. Just then,
俺残ります。
Nomura!
副長の命令ですけど、新選組大使として局長を見捨てるわけにはいきません。
野村君。
てめえ、この場で俺にぶった切られてえのか。
いや、待ってください。
Nomura didn't even blink. Boy, what are you trying to do? His eyes burned with intense vigor as he glared back at Hijikata-san.
本当なら副長がここに残りたいはずですよね。でも局長から新選組を託された身だからそれができないわけで。だから俺が副長の代わりに局長をお守りします。
Hijikata-san curled his lip, staring down at Nomura for a long moment silently. Eventually, he unsheathed the Izumi no Kami Kanasara from the scabbard on his left hip.
副長。
As the exclamation left Shimada's mouth, Hijikata pointed the tip of his sword towards Nomura's throat.
近藤さんを守るっつった。
Sweat trickled down Nomura's flushed cheeks. He met Hijikata-san's stare, fixing his gaze steadily before he nodded in a curt manner.
はい。
だったら絶対にやり遂げてみせろ。何があっても近藤さんのそばから離れるな。いいな。
Oh shit. No! Nomura's eyes grew wide. They trembled ever so slightly, but soon after, they brimmed with a fiery determination.
はい、野村利三郎、絶対に局長の恩義をお守りします。
It seemed Nomura convinced Hijikata-san as the latter returned his blade to its sheath. Nomura, boy, no! Hijikata-san's words were curt as he nodded briskly before leaving the residence behind. So in a short while, Kondo and Nomura will hand the terms of surrender to the Imperial Army. I looked back over my shoulder many times as we ran. Soon, Kondo-san would surrender to his enemies. Perhaps, I thought to myself time and again, if we turn back now, we can still rescue him. There have to be ways all four of us can escape. Shimada seemed to feel the same way, but Hijikata-san never once turned to look back. We ran and ran through the forest to Ichikawa. It didn't matter how quickly we got there, it wouldn't be soon enough to bring back an army to save Kondo-san. We all knew that, but Hijikata-san didn't slow down.
雪村君、大丈夫ですか？なんなら俺がおぶっていきましょうか。
I'm fine. I can keep going. Hijikata, his back to us, said nothing, but I could feel how pained he was with each step he took from Kondo-san. Oh god. The sun had begun to dip towards the western horizon and night had started to fall when...
おい、そこの者たち止まれ。どこへ向かうつもりだ。
He was dressed in a simple western uniform. Hijikata-san only frowned and made to walk past the soldier.
止まれと言っているだろう。貴様、まさか爆兵か。いや、こいつの顔、どこかで見た覚えがあるぞ。そうだ、新選組の土方だ。なんだと、坂本殿を暗殺した新選組の副長か。
Oh, that's still going around? Ryoma Sakamoto, a Ronin from Tosa who negotiated the alliance between Satsuma and Choshu for the proposed overthrowing the Tokugawa shogunate. He played a crucial part in the restoring imperial rule. As they began to scramble for their guns, I noticed the mark of the Tosa domain on their uniforms. Unfortunately, they weren't fast enough for Hijikata-san. His hair snapped white and he shot towards the soldiers, kanasada in hand. His strike was so fast and elegant that the eye barely even had time to realize he had happened. Wait. His strike was so fast and elegant that the eye barely even had time to realize it had happened before two men fell dead to the ground.
運が悪かったな。ちょうど虫の居所が悪いんだ。
A volley of gunfire erupted from the rest of the Imperial soldiers nearby. I heard the wet thud of bullets hitting Hijikata-san. He stumbled, but almost immediately his wound began to close.
これが銃の痛みか。思ったよりどうってことねえな。そうだ。なんてことねえよ。あの人がこれから受ける痛みに比べたら全然ねえ。
Hijikata-san launched himself at the nearest of the riflemen, his sword already in motion and his face twisted by grief and anger. Even without the fury powers, Hijikata-san and Shimada could have made short work of the small troop of men. But rage and frustration boiled inside of him ever since we left Kondo-san, erupting in a torrent of violence. No! Stop! You can't use your powers! He had to understand what he was doing.
うるせえ！黙ってろ！
He knew what he was doing, but he was past caring. Hijikata leapt from tree to tree, his sword flashing like lightning. Every time it moved, a life ended. Rage, anguish, and an unrestrained thirst for blood radiated out of him like heat from a fire. I could feel it, even from where I stood. Blood soaked his face, chest, and hands. Still, he cut and cut, never satisfied. I saw Shimada and Soma sweating as they stood silently, watching Hijikata-san fight as a fury. They were mesmerized, but I couldn't blame them. Hijikata-san looked as if he'd forgotten how to do anything but kill. Every move he made drew blood, and every swing of his sword spilled a man out onto the dirt. He looked like a monster. At last, the only person still alive was Hijikata-san himself. Silence fell over the forest again. He turned to face us, every inch of his skin slick with blood.
島田、相馬、 他に敵がいねえか見てきてくれ。
はい。
すぐに行ってきます。
They disappeared into the forest, desperate to distance themselves from the carnage.
お前も一緒に行け。
His voice was cold and rough, like stones grinding against one another. Normally, I would have immediately done as he asked and headed off into the forest after Shimada. But this time,
何をしてやがる。俺の命令が聞けねえのか。
his words cut like a knife, but I didn't move. I'm sorry, but I can't do that.
副長命令だぞ。
He sounded angry, as he often did, but behind that anger was a deep, miserable sadness. If he didn't stay angry, I felt he would probably cry. I promise I won't get in your way. But please, just let me stay here with you. I knew there was nothing I could do for him, but neither could I bear to leave him alone. I refused to leave. He turned his back to me, to everything. His face was hidden from me. I have no idea what kind of expression he wore in his face. But suddenly, his tall back and broad shoulders seemed small, tired, and very, very lonely. What could I say to him? How could I make him feel better? I searched my soul for something, anything, but I came up empty. After interminable, miserable silence, he finally spoke.
俺は何のためにここまでやってきたんだろうな。
How could this be the card fate had dealt? Two men so honest and determined. It just didn't seem fair.
あんなところで近藤さんを敵に譲り渡すためか。そのために今まで必死に走ってきたのか。あの人を押し上げてもっともっと高いところまで担ぎ上げてやりたかった。関西帝君や清正公どころじゃねえ。もっともっとすげえ戦をさせて本物の武将にしてやりたかった。片田舎の貧乏道場の主と百姓の息子でどこまでいけるのか試してみたかった。
His voice had begun to shake. I wasn't even sure he still knew I was there. If he did, it seemed he no longer cared.
俺たちは同じ夢を見てたはずだ。あの人のためならどんなことだってできるって思ってた。なのにどうして俺はここにいるんだ。近藤さんを置き去りにしてどうしててめえだけ助かってるんだよ。結局俺はあの人を見捨ててきたんじゃねえか。徳川の殿様と同じで絶対に見捨てちゃいけねえ相手を捨てててめえだけ生き残ってるんじゃねえかよ。
It tore me apart to hear him talk like that. I couldn't bear to just stand and listen. I wrapped my arms around him as far as they would go and pressed my face against his back. He said nothing. Kondo-san said, after you'd left, I told him that you'd figure it out. And he said that I was asking too much of you. No, I told myself, you can't cry. The pain that Hijikata-san was feeling was far deeper than you could ever imagine. But to no avail. So the tears began to fall, and I struggled ahead. I know how much you care about Kondo-san. But he did what he did because he feels the same about you. Don't you see? It's not your fault. You can't blame yourself. Kondo-san didn't want you to die. That's why you're still alive. He ordered you to leave. You didn't have a choice. Just... please, don't blame yourself. Hijikata-san listened, saying nothing. Or perhaps he didn't even hear me. Why did words feel so powerless when I needed them most? What good were they if I couldn't comfort someone I cared for when they were at their lowest? After several long minutes, I felt Hijikata-san relax.
新選組の近藤勇がいなくなった今どうやって生きろってんだよ。あの人を高いところまで押し上げるって夢があったから俺は今まで生きてこられたんだ。それがなくなっちまった今俺なんてもう抜け殻みてえなもんじゃねえか。
He gave a short bark of laughter, but there was no humor in it.
近藤さんよ、あんた俺に厄介事ばっかり押し付けてくれやがる。
He choked back a sob and fell silent. The night we decided on heading north, Hijikata-san, Soma, and I snuck back into Edo. When we arrived at a civilian's house, Soma mentioned he was going to visit a friend of his, and he left us. However, I just think Soma was trying to be considerate by giving Hijikata-san some space. The person who welcomed us in was...
こんばんは、土方さん、千鶴ちゃん。まさか僕のお見舞いに来てくれるなんて思いませんでしたよ。
And now you are here.
No. お前、起きても大丈夫なのか。しかもその格好。
ずっと一人で寝てるのにも飽き飽きしちゃって。このままじゃ活躍できそうにないし、そろそろみんなを追いかけようと思うんですけど。
ふざけたことを抜かすんじゃねえ。その体で刀を握れるわけねえだろうが。
そんなことありませんよ。このところすごく調子がいいんですから。
Well, that was a lie. Suddenly, Okuta was crouched on the floor, coughing painfully with strained breaths. Are you alright, Okita? I rubbed his back to comfort him as he caught his breath. At first glance, he may have looked to be improving, but upon closer inspection, he had lost a lot of weight, and it was almost painful to look at his thinning body.
言わんこっちゃね。病人は病人らしく静養してろ。
Okita bit his lips out frustration, grimacing at the thought of admitting his weakness. He sighed deeply and closed his eyes before speaking.
近藤さんはどうしてるんです？今日も来てくれないんですか？
I think my heart skipped a beat. I flinched at his mention of Kondo-san, which caused my body to jolt unexpectedly. Hijikata-san, however, was unfazed by his question.
あの人は今や大名だからな。いろいろと用事が立て込んでるんだよ。
怪我の調子はまだ動くのは辛いんじゃないですか？
怪我をしたのはもう半年も前だぜ。ピンピンしてるよ。刀を握るのはちと難しいが、今の立場じゃ近藤さんが実戦に出ることもねえからな。
自分のことみたいに得意そうに言わないでくださいよ。でもそうか、近藤さん元気なんですね。
Okita finally seemed to have eased down. It looked as if Kondo-san's well-being was the only thing keeping Okita invested in his own health. But little did he know the truth about Kondo-san.
次こそは近藤さんを連れてきてやるから、おとなしく待ってろよ。いいな。
信用せずに待ってます。土方さんって嘘つきですから。
誰が嘘つきだ。近藤さんに関することで俺が嘘を言ったことなんざねえだろうが。
The tone of their conversation sounded like one of their usual banter sessions, but this was different. Both of them wore expressions that gleamed with nostalgia. I could understand now why Soma may have felt inclined to step out. I began to gather that there was much for them to reminisce about, so I took the chance to sneak out. A cool breeze of night air brushed against my cheeks as I gazed towards stars twinkling in the clear sky. I can't continue anymore. I need a break. I need the break. I need the break, and I need to go eat dinner. Because it's time for me to eat dinner. I eat dinner on a fucking schedule, apparently. I am the catch.